Women of Power podcast is a platform for passionate and influential women who are catalysts for change, pioneers in their fields, the change makers, the trailblazers, performers and influencers, driven entrepreneurs and professionals. They play a vital role in driving economic growth and bridging the talent shortages across organizations of various scales. Building cause-based businesses to create positive impact in their communities and towards sustainable goals for the people, planet, and prosperity. In every industry, women are shattering barriers and strive to create a space where they can exhibit their achievements and motivate other women to unleash their limitless potential. We encourage collaboration, networking, and knowledge sharing among women. Let's inspire and learn from one another while sharing our valuable experiences. Thank you for joining us and listening to this episode. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Women of Power. Women of Power podcast is a platform for passionate and influential women who are catalysts of change, pioneers in their field, the change makers, trailblazers, performers, and influencers, and driven entrepreneurs and professionals. They play a vital role in driving economic growth and bridging talent shortages across organizations of various scales, building cause-based businesses to create positive impact in their communities and towards sustainable goals for people, planet, and prosperity. Women of Power is a dynamic platform that recognizes the incredible potential of women as a driving force behind the global economic growth. It's a platform that celebrates and empowers women of passion and power. Today, we have an amazing conversation with an amazing guest. She is a power of herself in her dynamic strengths and field. We'll ask her to tell us more about herself, but let me introduce her, Shelli Brunswick. Shelli Brunswick is an eminent figure in the realm of the space exploration and innovation. These are not kind of professionals that you come across too often. So I'm very proud to have Shelli on my platform today. With a wealth of experience spanning across a dynamic career, Shelli's profound insights and visionary perspective have established her as a guiding force within the global space community. I want to repeat that. Global space community. Wow. Embarking on a remarkable journey, Shelli has navigated through distinguished roles within the U.S. Air Force, showcasing her prowess as a leader in space acquisition, program management, and congressional liaison. From her impactful tenure as a Chief Operating Officer of Space Foundation, she has seamlessly transitioned to her current role as a CEO and a founder of SP Global. Shelli's leadership acumen is nothing short of exceptional, with a focus on strategic engagement and advocacy that reflects her profound understanding of the intricate tapestry shaping global space ecosystem. That's really profound, very profound background. She is advocate for space technology innovation, diversity, and inclusion. I have heard Shelli's talk, and this is amazing, the work that she's putting it out. She's a prolific author, a sought-after keynote speaker. Her impact is truly global. She delivers about 100 speeches a year, addressing audiences across continents on the themes of career success, leadership, and workforce development. The list goes on, but I'll let Shelli talk about a little bit more about her role in various domains that she has. But I just want to make sure that there is something that's really profound that I want to take an opportunity to to talk about it. Her influence extends to the future as well, as Shelli has contributed her expertise to research initiative for NASA and ESA. I'm so excited for our conversation, Shelli. So you have a list on very long list of accomplishments. I can go on and on. I would like to welcome to the platform and talk about a little bit yourself, what you have been up to recently, and what's going on in your world in space research, and especially the women's zone.
Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to join you. I'm so honored to be here. I've listened to several of your shows, and it's so exciting to hear the women and leaders that you interview and the words of wisdom that they're sharing with your audience. So I'm honored to be included in that group.
Thank you, Shelli. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about Shelli. How did you get here where you are at present?
Well, wonderful. I think, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. And I think for your audience, that was probably a little more boring. So let me do this. Let me kind of explain how my journey has unfolded. And that might be easier for your audience to understand how somebody can have so many different chapters. And that's what I call them as chapters. I have 4 different chapters in my journey. And so that first chapter is when I enlisted in the US Air Force right out of high school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my career. I didn't have any college money. I wanted to see the world, and joining the US Air Force as an enlisted service member was a great way to see the world. And I did. I got stationed in Turkey and Germany and at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs. I was able to learn a profession. I was a personnel specialist or human relations. And I took advantage of some opportunities that the Air Force offered by going to school at night and using tuition assistance. So, by going to school at night and working during the day, I was able to complete my college education, which prepared me to apply for the second chapter of my journey. I applied to become an officer in the Air Force. And we'll talk more about that later because I wasn't accepted the first time, but I was accepted the second time to become an officer in the Air Force. And I was accepted to become a space acquisition officer. So that really started my space journey, which has been more than 25 years now. And that was an amazing experience getting to work on ground station and launch vehicles, which are rockets, satellites. I was a
Wow.
professor at Defense Acquisition University. I got to teach about space acquisition. And then my career in the Air Force culminated by working on the US Capitol Hill as a congressional liaison, helping to secure the budget and the programs for the US Air Force. So it was an amazing 2 chapters being in the Air Force, that first one enlisted and the second one as an officer. And then when I retired from the Air Force, I was so fortunate that Space Foundation was looking for their next chief operating officer. And I didn't get the job. Many times people think, "Oh, you just got it." No, I had to apply and go through an interview process. There were many candidates, and fortunately, I was selected to be the chief operating officer at Space Foundation. And that was an amazing journey of 9 years. I learned all about organizing and being in a nonprofit, creating and growing new programs, products, and services, profit and loss divisions, scaling up, and during COVID, scaling down. And so it was a great experience. And then just this year in 2024, I left Space Foundation and started my 4th chapter of my journey, which is now I've launched my own company, as you've noted, SB Global LLC. And so now I'm starting a new thing. I've been an advocate for women to be entrepreneurs. And I figure if I'm going to be an advocate for women to be entrepreneurs, I need to lead by example. So now I'm out there with you being an entrepreneur. So that's a little bit about my journey and how I got to where I am today.
Shelly, thank you so much. It's so fascinating that most of the listener, I mean, meeting someone in space research is not you come across as often, right? And getting to know their personal journey, as you had said, as a high school student, didn't have the college money. My goodness, how many people find themselves in those situations? And they may not see the bright future ahead of them because I'm being just very compassionate towards there are a lot of people that they beat themselves up. I don't have this. I don't have resources. I don't have the parents. You have to have your personal strength a motivations to do something, and the roads open up, you know, paths open up, doors open up. And it's not an easy journey for most of us where we have gotten. I have met over the years, like most of us, many individuals that their journeys have been extremely challenging. Imputed individuals that they have innovated amazing products to help out the community in their similar situations. So I'm fascinated, always fascinated that, there's the world has so much to offer. There's abundance if we look at that way. I'm really, really honored and pleased to have this conversation with you. I want to go back a little bit when you were a high school student and you joined, enlisted and joined Air Force. Was it common at that time for women to go into service?
Well, no, it was not. Primarily, the service is primarily men, but women are definitely increasing in the roles. And
Mhm,
then, especially, and I was in human relations, so we did have more women in that career field. But when I did become an officer and go into the space acquisition career field, there
mhm,
were times when I was the only woman in the room. And that's okay. Again, I never felt like I was the only woman in the room because, I was wearing a uniform just like everyone else, sitting at the table just like everyone else. So I never felt any difference. And
mhm.
then, of course, coming into the space industry, retiring out of the military and going to work at Space Foundation. Again, a lot of the space industry, technology, innovation is male dominated, but I think we need to be out there presenting new role models and opportunities. And I have seen that the opportunities for women and other underrepresented groups in the space industry and technology is definitely growing. So space is open for business and it's open for everyone.
That's excellent. It's such a nice way to put it because, um, as we see right now, the younger generation of women, they may not recognize, but I want to remind everyone there are trailblazer women that have opened up the path. They have set the stage so the young people, the younger generation can come and expand themselves and, grow their wings and take off, right? So there's a lot of work was done. People like you that came into the industry dominated by men, by no ways means I am against anything the women never had opportunities. It was the lifestyle at that time, right? Mid 50s, women started getting into corporate world and that paid careers more and more. And globally, that was happening. And I see that and hear from the women. It's that was an easy journey to find path because I say that because there was not much guidance for women. I remember myself entering law school, and my father was an attorney, and he had a friend visiting, and he just introduced me. I came in the room, and they were talking, and he said, "Well, she's entering law school and stuff," and he just commented, "Girls don't go to this career, etc., etc." And so it was just like people would sometime not have young women would not have enough guidance. I was one of them. So I had to find my own path. And I want to have this conversation with you because um, at this stage, we are in the third decade of 21st century. There's a lot of new careers and domains are opening up. Um, the gender is not an issue, right? But we still find that um, there's not as much guidance and as much of a mentoring for young women. Do you find that in the industries that you have been, that there are more women and they are facing higher challenges than the counterparts? Is that so?
Well, I think for the space industry, let's talk a little bit about the past and where we are today. So I always
Mhm,
like to talk about the Apollo era and where we
mhm,
are today with the Artemis generation. So the Apollo
mhm,
era, 60 years ago, we were in a space race with two countries, primarily government workers, STEM professionals, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and primarily male. So that
mhm,
was the workforce we saw. Now we call this the Artemis generation, which is Artemis is the twin sister of Apollo. And as we as humanity are going to return to the moon and go on to Mars, it is now the Artemis generation. And you can see more diversity. Obviously, it's no longer two countries in a space race. There's more than 90 countries operating in the space industry and many more that want to operate. We're seeing a diversity of genders as well as regions of the world, but we're also now seeing that diversity of backgrounds and skill sets. So we still need STEM professionals, but as you said, we also need lawyers, we need space lawyers, we need policymakers, we need program managers, we need teachers and technicians. You know, we need everyone in the supply chain and manufacturing. We need entrepreneurs now and investors. So now there's an opportunity for everyone to look at space as well as technology, you know, because space is technology. And now there's an opportunity for a diversity of career sets, multi-generational, gender, as well as regions of the world. So it's an exciting time to be part of it. But yes, there are always still challenges. There's always amazing things. So one of the things I'll highlight that I think is a great stride forward is I just returned from Orlando, Florida for the 50th Space Congress. And somebody posted on LinkedIn, I was part of the opening ceremony, and there were 3 women in the opening ceremony and 2 men. And somebody posted on LinkedIn how amazing it was that there were 3 women that were part of the opening ceremony for the 50th Space Congress. So I think that illustrates that women are definitely taking their place in the space industry. They're seen as thought leaders. They're being invited to be part of opening ceremonies and panels and discussions. But we still have a long way to go to create gender equality as well as underrepresented groups, both in the United States and around the world. So we need to keep moving forward because we're all standing on the shoulders of others. You know, my mother and grandmother were amazing leaders and role models for me. And hopefully the next generation is standing on our shoulders, helping to create the future for the next generation.
Absolutely. We learn from each other. And I always say that, as much as we like to say we teach our next generation, our children, we're learning from them as well. We're learning, they're teaching us too. So always be open to learning. So each generation has their specific traits that they bring in. You know, we talk about baby boomer generation, they had their own ethics and traits, and the younger generation has their own. We may not like something with this one generation or another, but then I see that maybe our grandparents thought the same way, that this grandkid generation is so different. That's how it's going to be, and I am really excited to see uh, how much new opportunities are available to young women today. And when I say that, actually, young women, my thought process behind is that if the young women are empowered and they become, as by our DNA and by our gender role, we are the mothers, the givers of life, right? So as we give birth to boys and girls and raise them, they grow up to be men and women. Women have very strong power within them, if they recognize it, to bring everyone together, right? So if they are not given the equal opportunities and that same sort of nurturing and kindness that extended to our counterparts, we're minimizing them. We're um, only damaging what they bring it to the table, right? A strong woman, a empowered woman empowers the entire family. That's how I see it. And I'm always, always strong advocate of you empower women, you empower their next generation, boys and girls, men and women. So, as you had mentioned, the space industry right now, there's 90 plus countries. So, people who will be listening to our conversation, not just North America, but around the world, I see the STEM education, the younger generation, boys and girls, young men and women, everywhere, they have more career opportunities and even in education that going back 50 years were there. Having the new educational and career platforms that they are available today, how do you see or would encourage younger people to be open to certain new areas that they may not have thought of? Because just going and doing your bachelor's or just something that your parents or cousins or someone did, and how do you become more open to finding out there's new areas to learn and grow?
Well, I'd like to share that I have an interstellar guide to success, and it has three main pieces, and that's awareness, access, and action. And so that awareness piece is what you're talking about. It all starts with awareness. People have to be aware that there are new opportunities. They have to be able to figure out what those opportunities are, and they have to kind of know themselves too. So what I highlight is, you can go on the internet and you can get lost, right? You might start looking at one thing and 2 hours later you're somewhere else. So it also requires that individual to understand themselves and what do they want to accomplish. But on the internet today, you can learn so much about awareness. That's why I'm joining you for this program today, and that the global audience can understand that technology, space, entrepreneurship, leadership could be one path. And now they can look at what is the awareness about how they could find that. Do they look for opportunities through their space agency? And then they look for the next step, which is the access point. So once you know what you kind of want to do, you need to find access points.
Mhm.
And access points could be education, and that can be formal or informal education. We not only need people who have 4-year degrees or PhDs or masters, but we also need people who are in the trades, the technology. We need electricians and welders and in the supply chain and manufacturing. So you
Yes.
can have formal and informal fellowships, internships. We also need to look at building our networks. There are so many great networks in the space industry for young professionals. There's Space Generation Advisory Council. And that's a global organization that you can join and find like-minded people and collaborate. There's also the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs. They have multiple things that you could join: Space for Youth, Space for Women, Space and Water, Space and Lawyers. So find that network, find people like you, because then they also help you find opportunities. And then that third big thing is find a mentor, because many
Yes.
times a mentor can help you navigate this awareness and access points. And the mentoring programs, ENUSA has a mentoring program, as well as a great organization called Women Tech Network. And although
Okay.
it says women in the name, it is open to men and women to be both mentors and proteges. And then
Okay.
that third step is take action, right? Many times people do the research, they think about it, but then they don't do it. Take action, do something, join the group, sign up for a webinar, listen to a podcast like this one, take action and learn more. So we have to take action, and we as leaders need to take action as well. We need to be out there doing podcasts, doing interviews, being mentors, giving tours of our facility so that young minds can see what their careers could be and they can find a pathway, being a science fair judge. So we need those young professionals, those young idealistic individuals who want to see what the future is. They need to take action, and we as the leaders, we need to take action. And so it's awareness, access, and action.
Thank you so much. Mentorship is so important, as we talked about it a little bit earlier too. That 20 years ago, when I entered my IT career, there was no mentorship, right? I was the seeker. I was going finding because the drive, the desire was there. So it wasn't easy, right? A lot of time people would brush you off, but I never gave up. When someone else that you're reaching out, they see the sincerity in your efforts. Like you say, take action. They see you taking action, being sincere to to your commitments, right? Doors would open. So I thank you so much for mentioning that. And I heard you talked about in the past about sustainable goals, etc. I'm really interested in for our audience that you know a lot of time when I would talk to people about sustainable goals, depending on where they are in the world, for some, it's really important, right? Sustainable goals. For others, there's not much awareness or interest. And I think my personal views are that it's important for everyone. I was fascinated when you had mapped everything that you have done and you see how they interact with the sustainable goals. Would you like to talk about maybe a couple of them?
Absolutely. So it is interesting. That is one of the questions I get. There are so many challenges here on Earth. Why are we focused on going to space? And what I want to highlight is that space is certainly about going to the moon and Mars and beyond, but space is also about solving our greatest challenges here on Earth. So it is a circle, and it
Mhm.
does help support the Sustainable Development Goals. So in 2015, the UN agreed to 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And if you go to that United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, there is a drop down menu and it highlights how space is part of each and every one of those solutions for the Sustainable Development Goal. So we'll just talk about one. Let's talk about no hunger, right? Zero hunger. So we
Yes.
think about space, and you're probably thinking, well, what does that have to do with Earth? Well, there's a number of things. So I met three entrepreneurs that were going to Qatar University studying to be nutritionists. So, first of all, your audience is probably thinking, what do nutritionists have to do with space? And I will say, there are nutritionists working for NASA and other space agencies because we need to think about the nutrition that astronauts will eat. So, there is a career field for nutritionists in the space industry. But for these three individuals studying to be nutritionists, that wasn't their goal. They wanted to be entrepreneurs because they wanted to create a healthy, delicious snack that
Mhm.
could be used to help reduce hunger and also reduce food waste. So many times, fruits and vegetables are thrown away that don't look right, that aren't the right size or shape. They're left to rot or discarded. So, what
Yes.
they did is they took those fruits and vegetables that are normally thrown away. They used a tried and true form of space technology called freeze dried technology. They froze those fruits and vegetables, and now they've helped to create a healthy, delicious snack that helps reduce hunger in the Middle East. So that's one example. There's also many, many others. There's another thing called precision agriculture. And
Mhm.
that's where farmers use GPS, so the satellites, to better plant their crops and harvest them. And usually with precision agriculture, you can increase crop yields by 10%. So that's another way. You can also use satellites for Earth observation to look at your crops, and then you can determine from that data, are your crops healthy? Do they need fertilizer? Do they need pest control? Do they need water? And you can look at the state of your crops and not have to wait till the end of the harvest season to realize, do you have enough food or not enough food? So those are just a couple examples of how space technology is helping with just one of the sustainable development goals, but they are helping with each and every one.
That is so fascinating because food is the basic necessity, right? And if we map the SDGs, no hunger, and the space technology, how to freeze dry, it just makes much more sense when you put it that way. And I specifically wanted to have you talk about it because I was blown away when I had heard that because you talk about because for most of us, we will not connect the two. In our normal lives, in normal routine, we would not connect the two. How space research or space technology can help us here on Earth. So, I just for my audiences, I just want to touch on this one more time that never limit yourself If you're going into a certain career and you don't know anyone else in your friend circle or relatives or known people that have gone into it, what can you do? Be innovative, find ways, find mentors, find access to places, and then take action. So what else, Shelly? Tell us.
Well,
Tell
I think being aware of social media. So I think LinkedIn is an amazing tool
Mhm,
that everyone should be signed up for, no matter whether you're a high school student or you're more senior in your career like myself, because there are so many great newsletters and organizations you can join. So for your audience, for those young professionals out there, one of the things I will recommend you sign up to is a newsletter and group called Opportunities for Youth. And
okay.
through that, they offer scholarships, PhDs, master's degrees, internship programs, not just in the United States, but around the world. So I think that's an amazing thing. So have a presence on LinkedIn, create a resume. I think also looking at the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, look at some of the groups they have, whether it's Space for Youth, Space and Water, Space and Food, and find
Mhm,
something that you might want to be part of, because these groups
mhm.
will help you find the next opportunity in your career.
Excellent. You mentioned space and water. Give us a little bit more.
Absolutely. Well, I think many times people don't realize, we're seeing with climate change that water is very different now on the planet. Some places are getting too much water, some places are not getting enough, and that's causing a lot of challenges. So, what I'd like to highlight is we as humanity have been living in outer space on the International Space Station for more than 20 years. That means every drop of water we drink, so lovely drop of water, is recycled. That means it goes through a filtration process and is reused. And it's tested to ensure that it's safe to drink. That same technology that has been used in space on the International Space Station is now used here on Earth. So many people in your audience, they could go to a camping store, they could buy a bottle that filters water. So you don't have to carry your water in disposable bottles. You could use that filtration, filter stream water, puddle water. But the other thing it can do is help villages in Africa. And what I mean by that is one of my good friends, Lumbi Malambo, she's a
Mhm,
UN ambassador for water. When she was a young girl, she was growing up in Africa, and she would have to walk 4 to 10 miles one way to get water for her family. And young girls and women are still having to do that in Africa today. And that is one of the sustainable development goals, clean water. So these girls and women are having to walk 4 to 10 miles one way to get water
mhm.
and coming home. One, is dangerous. There could be bandits. Two, it prevents them from going to school or having jobs. So it also impacts the sustainable development goals related to gender equality and quality education.
Yes.
And even when they get this water home to their families, it could be contaminated. So now that's a fourth sustainable development goal, healthy sanitation and clean water. So one sustainable development goal, clean water, affects so many others. So these young girls and women would have to walk all this distance, come home with the water, increasing poverty, increasing their inability to get jobs or go to school. So what Lumbi is doing is
Mhm.
she is helping to drill wells within a 30-minute walk of villages in
Wow.
Africa through her charity. And
Wow.
so now the girls and women only have to walk 30 minutes one way, 30 minutes back. Now they can go to school. Now they can get jobs. Now there's gender equality. Now they can help create money that helps the family. And yes, she is using traditional earth methods for finding water, but
Mhm.
space technology can also help, complemented with earth technology, to better find those wells to drill for water.
Okay.
And then the other thing I talked about, filtrating the water. We
Mhm.
can also test water. In many parts of the world, there can be floods. So there were some massive floods in Cameroon, where I have an amazing protege named Asta. You can use that same filtration and testing of water that I talked about on the International Space Station to help test wells where water has been contaminated by flooding. You can test the water and see if it's safe. If it's not safe, you can use filtration systems. So there are organizations like Engineers Without Borders and others that help to bring this technology around the world. There's not enough yet, but what we're doing today is building awareness that there are solutions for women and people around the world that may have severe flooding, that they can filter and test the water. We're bringing solutions that there's ways to find water so that women and girls in villages around Africa can go to school. So what we're doing today is we're building awareness that there are great organizations like Lumbi Malambos where you can donate and help girls and women be able to go to school and get jobs.
What a noble cause. How much impact it has, the ripple effect. I just thought of that. I came across in a young woman here in New York. She was leading a nonprofit and teaching people how to build little solar DIY lanterns and charge them in a daylight in villages in Philippines and other places where there are no electricity. So if you're walking in the dark, or you can even at home in the evening hours, you have your own lamps without any oil or any kind of batteries or something, no contamination. Just like so many things the young people can do these days. They just have to open up their mind and find. And as you said, that we need to lead them as well. It's just not that their desire or ambition is enough. They need leaders, they need platform, they need access. So it just kind of goes both ways. But there's just so much is happening. I can keep talking to you on so many different topics. I want to give you the opportunity. Is there anything that you would like to share with audience, and something that you find fascinating and young people should know?
Well, what I'll share with you is I've come up with a new form of leadership called Global Transformational Leadership, GTL, because the world has changed from decades ago when we had Hershey Blanchard or servant leaders. We really need to look at leadership being global transformational leaders, or GTL. And that has three main traits, and that is you need to be inspirational, you need to be authentic, and you need to have gratitude. Now, what
Mhm.
I mean by inspirational is, how many of you listen to a leader that is talking on TV and they're not very inspirational? They kind of talk like this, and maybe they're not sure, and they're reading their talking points. No, we need to be inspirational as leaders. We need to come out with passion. We need to communicate a vision. We need to help people understand where we are today and how we're going to get to the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. We need to communicate that, and we need to bring people with us. We need to be authentic. We need to be committed to what we're saying, that no matter where we go, what we're saying is who we are. I had a mentor who used to say, Shelli, no matter where you go, you're Shelli. It's in your DNA. You need to connect with people at that authentic level. I think your audience will know that what I'm saying, I believe, I'm passionate about, and I want to share that. And that third one is we need to have gratitude. No matter how our day is going, we have to have gratitude and think about how we are grateful. And then, as having gratitude, we need to pay that forward. That's where we need to be servant leaders. That's why I want to do this show today. I want to help others find their journey. I want to help others be able to create the careers they want. I want to pay it forward because I'm so grateful for all the things that I've been blessed with throughout my career and my journey. So for today's GTLs, inspirational, authentic, and gratitude, that's what we need in our leaders today.
That is so amazing, Shelley. I know gratitude is, I cannot undermine the value of that. I always, in my daily gratitude, I always say that how blessed we are to be where we are. No matter how our journey had been, everyone had some kind of uh, bumps and, bumpy road here and there. But there's so many young people, children in war zones and refugee camps. If you look at that, what their tough life is, comparing to that, we're living an amazing life, right? So the gratitude, paying foot forward, I could not agree anymore with that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that you have uh, um, written book, and you also have some inspirational guide to success. How can people get that? How can they
Well,
get access to it?
fantastic. Well, I'm currently working on that now. I'm going to
Mhm.
create a series of books about many of the talks. I have a book coming out. The first one's going to be on lessons learned over my space journey. And so that will be the first book. And these will be universal truths. I've interviewed hundreds of leaders around the world, captured their insights, and come up with some
Wow.
lessons learned. The
Mhm.
second book will be on that inspirational guide to success, more details. And then the third book will be on global transformational leadership. So I'm kind of taking a pause in some of my activities so that I can work on these three books this year, 2024. That's kind of my goal for this year, so that I will be able to provide those resources. In the interim, I encourage people to check out my YouTube channel, watch your show where I've talked about a lot of these things. And
Mhm.
then again, my goal is taking a pause from having that job at Space Foundation. Part of leaving Space Foundation to start this new chapter in
Mhm.
my journey was so that I could write these books and then become more of a mentor to help the next generation.
We will share your YouTube channel with our audience, and you have shared so much information and excellent ideas for the young people to be inspired. I would like to ask you, if you don't mind, one more time, if you want to give us about at the UN site, where can people find more information?
So that is the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, unusa.org.
Mhm.
And there you will find the drop down menu, but you'll find ways you can contribute and collaborate: space for youth, space for women, space and water, space and food. And you can find a group you're excited about. The other group I talked about is Space Generation Advisory Council. SGAC, and they are a global organization as well. And you can find people both in your country and around the world that you can collaborate with. And that third one I talked about is Women Tech Network. It's open to men and women. It's a global organization with a mentoring program. They do a conference every year, but it highlights and helps women and diversity come into the technology sector. And space and technology are intertwined now. There is no separation.
Yes.
Every technology, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, healthcare, energy, they're all part of the space industry. So Women Tech Network is one of those great organizations as well.
That is amazing. Such a great information to share with audience. And you also mentioned LinkedIn. Be part of the LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is such an amazing, it's a really credible professional platform. So there's so much information available on LinkedIn. So
And that group on LinkedIn, I highly recommended young professionals, is called Opportunities for Youth. I recommend your audience
mhm,
sign up because, again, they offer scholarships, fellowships, internships. It's a
mhm.
wonderful group on LinkedIn for young professionals to find opportunities.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing. For youth, I want to ask you, people who want to be mentors, anything you will advise them, guide them, how to be mentored, how to connect with y- young people.
Well, I think there's different types of mentors. So that's the first thing. What type of mentor do you want to be? So there
Mhm.
are mentors and they can help individuals with certain skills. So when I started being a mentor, many times proteges wanted to be entrepreneurs or they wanted to be in the space industry. So it was very focused. But as I progressed as a mentor, I became more of a coach, and a coach is more a
Mm.
life coach. So think of a mentor as I'll use a American analogy, baseball. So
Uh-huh.
maybe that mentor is like the batting coach. They help you in one area. Then you become a coach, which is more overall, like the coach of the baseball team. So that's helping somebody develop as an individual. How do they want to be? Where do they want to be? How do we progress them? And that third step is about being a champion. And a champion is
Yes.
about helping somebody get to the next step. They may not be the person that's there to call every day, like a mentor or maybe a coach,
Mhm.
but they're the person you call when you need a letter of recommendation to go to the university or you need something else. They help you get to the next step. And that might be like the baseball team owner. So depending where you are as a mentor, a coach, or a champion, you know how you want to fit and then how you can help others. And then you can join those organizations like Women Tech Network and others to help pay it forward.
That's excellent. Are there any platforms that people, if they're willing to become mentors, coaches, that they can join or go to LinkedIn and find something that they can be part of?
Well, Women Tech Network is one of the organizations that always is looking for women and men to be mentors. Oh,
Okay.
because you can't have proteges without mentors. You can also go to the UNUSA website, Space for
Okay.
Women, also men and women, as well as Space Generation Advisory Council. So there are several organizations, and I will be announcing a new mentoring program shortly on LinkedIn for an organization I'm supporting. So stand by. There'll be one more organization that people can help be a mentor for. So we always need mentors. But again, you know how you can also be a mentor? Go be a speaker at a middle school. Sign up to be a science fair judge with the Lions Club. Invite students to tour your facility if they can come through and see what your manufacturing floor or your assembly floor looks like. So you
Mhm.
can be a mentor in many ways that you may not even realize. So think about that as well. How can you help day to day? Maybe you can just be a speaker at that middle school, and right then and there, you're being a mentor.
That's an excellent way to just give a little bit time, you know, and give inspiration and guidance and just open more thought processes for young people because they are bombarded with so much information. Sometimes it's even for adults, not just young people, but for adults. You have too much overload of information. You need to parse out. You need to see what's really my thing. Right?
And well,
Uh,
that was part of what I shared with that first step of that interstellar guide to success, that awareness.
mhm.
Awareness also means you need to do some self work. You need to understand yourself. You know, learn about yourself, that emotional intelligence, and then create that filter system because there can be a lot of distractions. So
Yes.
you need to really do self work as well as understanding what are the opportunities. You need to understand where you are, what's important to you, and then start mapping how you get to where you want to
How
be.
you get to there. And you may not find it the first time, but it's always trial and error and just see where your heart aligns and what really you gravitate to. So there's always learning opportunities and processes. So Shelly, this was an amazing conversation. I before we wrap up the show, anything else that might come up to you to share with people or something you want to share that you're working on? I know you already discussed about the 3 books coming this year. That's itself isn't a huge project, but when people seek out and just to look out, you mentioned about your mentoring program coming this year or sometime in near future, books coming. Anything else?
So a couple things I'll share is my good friend Lumbi Malambo that I highlighted earlier through the UN Water. She's also leading an initiative called the 100 Voices for Our Planet. So I think you could Google that, and the
Okay.
goal of the 100 Voices for Our Planet is how each and every one of us can help with water conservation, how important that
Yes.
water is. So check that out. She's part of the UN as well as her
Okay.
nonprofit. The other thing I'll highlight is Women Tech Network is doing their annual conference in April. And one of the things I'll be talking about at the conference is some lessons learned over my journey in the space industry. So that's two big things. I am one of the voices of the planet for Lumbi Malambo.
Mhm.
So I am one of the 100 voices for our planet. And I will be speaking at the Women Tech Network in April about lessons learned in my journey. So for your audience, I hope you'll check out Lumbi's 100 Voices for the Planet and also look at Women Tech Network at their upcoming conference in April.
Will do, and we will share that information with the audience. And it has been such a pleasure to have you on this platform. And for our audience, please check out Shelly's YouTube. We'll share that information here. And stay in touch and see what else is coming up. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Women of Power.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And until next time, I'll see you around the galaxy.
All right.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We hope that information our guest has shared is helpful and you are taking away valuable tips and knowledge. We are committed to supporting women and building cause-driven businesses that create positive impact in their communities. Join us in the movement for change. Take action now and be part of Let's Come Together movement. Together, we can recognize, celebrate, and empower women who are making a difference in today's economy. Connect with passionate and powerful women, collaborate on cause-driven businesses, and build a better future for our communities. Let's advance sustainable goals for the people, planet, and prosperity. Join the Let's Come Together movement, a private community, today and be catalyst for change in creating and raising conscious leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.